Obby Creator, a Roblox game that was created by Whirlpool Studios back in 2019. In this game, you get to build anything you want using the in-game building tools. This tutorial is for those new with the game and who are willing to try it out for the first time. Now, when you first load into the game, you will notice that there are these gates. When spawning in, a green arrow points to the nearest available one. When you get near an available gate, you will notice that it turns from red color to a neon white. This means that the gate is available for you to claim as your own plot, sort of like a tycoon. If you are in a public server, you can see that there are other slots that have been claimed by other people. There are also featured obbies that take up slots. More about that later. Touching an unclaimed gate will cause it to turn transparent, which indicates that this is now your plot to build in. Upon claiming a gate, you will be greeted by some GUI. This interface contains quite a bit of information, so let's break it all down. So the first thing you may notice is the text over here that says your Obbies. You may be wondering what exactly an obby is. Well, it stands for obstacle course, which is basically parkour. Now, just because Obby Creator is a game about making obstacle courses, hence the name, it doesn't mean you have to limit yourself to make just that. Since there are so many creative ways to use different parts, you can really create whatever you put your mind to. Things can turn from a simple parkour game to something so much more complex and creative. This interface may be a bit different for you, but that is because I already have obbies that I've been working on. Below the text saying your obbies, it shows all of your obbies and a plus sign icon. Clicking this plus allows us to make a new slot for an obby, which requires either gems or Robux. Gems can be obtained by logging into Obby Creator daily and getting daily rewards. So right now, if you scroll through your obbies, you should be able to click on one. Doing this brings up this, which shows us a hammer icon and a pencil icon, as well as an image in the obby's name. Clicking the hammer icon means we can select that obby to start building with, or we can click the pencil icon. Now let's do that, and here we can see we have a few options to customize, one of which is changing the name of our obby. We can also add an image here using an image ID for either Robux or gems. This means next time we bring up this GUI, instead of seeing the default picture next to our obby, we see the image we put in. Once you're all done with that, press the check mark. If we take a look here, there's text saying the genre type of such obby. Clicking this brings up a list that allows us to select up to 2 genres. Now let's press the X so you can see what else is in this interface. On the top, there's a search bar. This allows us to search for other players' obbies, either using an obby ID, which I will explain later, a player's username, or the obby name. If we go ahead and type in a player's name, let's use mine as an example, then this pops up. We get an image of our player, their username, and the last time they joined Obby Creator. We also see a collection of all their obbies. You can also click the tab named Friends, and it will bring up a list of that player's friends, and their obbies if they have any. Now let's go back. When we scroll down, we can see a list of different genres of obbies. This just shows the top obbies people have made that are within the category. If we scroll down even further, we can see obbies we have favorited, liked, and a history of the most recent obbies we have visited. To favorite an obby, you must first look up a player's obby using the search bar. Then there will be a star icon you can click, meaning you have favorited that obby. You can also load a completely random obby by clicking the text right here. Now enough talking about the interface, let's go ahead and load an obby that we have. Click the yellow hammer button, and there you go, your very own slot that you can edit and customize. Now let's say I accidentally loaded in the wrong obby. On the left, if we click the load obby button, it brings us back to where we were before. If we want to start editing our obby, click the edit mode button. Before we talk about editing our obby, let's look at what we have around our obby gate. Right here, it shows the name we chose, and here is a green button. This button allows other players to like your obby. Reaching a high amount of likes will draw more attention to such obby, and can also unlock more advanced parts to place in your slot. This yellow button allows us to add donations by entering Game Pass ID, and the gray button is for if we want to share this obby with a friend. On this side, we see our player and their username, as well as their obby ID. These IDs are very important as it allows other players to load our obby without us actually being in their server. And here's the report obby button. If you think an obby is breaking Roblox rules, there's an option to report it. Just give a reason as to why it should be reported and explain why. If we look around spawn, There are conveyors going back and forth to make traveling from one obby to another easier. There's also a teleport button on the right side of your screen. If we click the arrows, we can transition through different obbies in our current server. If we click teleport, we'll arrive outside of their plot. And if you look around the map, you can also see cannons. These we can use to shoot ourselves forward with to reach our destination quicker. There's also billboards across the area. The billboards show us the latest updates of the game, as well as any important announcements. Another thing you may have noticed is the fact that there are featured obbies. The entrance to these obbies look a little different. Instead of showing the player, it has a sign containing other info. Not only does it have the obby name, the username of the player who created it, and the obby ID, but it has the like rating. This rating shows how high it is on the list for top liked obbies. An obby with a certain amount of likes will appear as being featured. It will then be ranked by the amount of likes it has. Featured obbies appear throughout every server and rotate every few minutes, which is why there's a timer by the gate. Who knows, maybe you'll be lucky enough someday to have a featured obby. Now let's take a look at edit mode. On the left there's an arrow and an add button. Clicking the arrow gets us out of edit mode, while the add button gives us options to place a part. Now let's start simple and place down just a regular part. On the bottom of our screen we see new buttons, one of which is settings, which I'll show later on. The next button has a trash can icon which deletes the part. Then there's the copy button, which copies the selected parts. Then the teleport button, which makes it so that we can teleport to anywhere inside of our obby with a single click. And then there's a select button, which only appears on mobile. Clicking this allows us to select multiple parts at a time, and if we hold down the select button, we can drag to select to cover a lot more area at a time. And the building setting tool. This allows us to transition from being in regular building mode to no clip mode, which enables flight. On the top right of our screen are even more buttons. Selecting the arrow undoes and redos our last edit move. The plugins button gives us access to more features, most of which involves spending Robux to utilize. Stay tuned for a future video where I go more in depth on plugins. Lastly is the screenshot mode button, which toggles the UI on and off, perfect for taking pictures or videos. On the bottom left side of our screen is the amount of cash we have and the limit. Every time we place a part, we spend some cash. This feature is here so that players don't place down a bunch of ginormous parts. Cash is gained slowly over time. You can also increase the cap in which you stop gaining cash by if you use Robux to purchase a game pass. So we have a part placed down. If we click the add button and go through the different tabs, we can see that there are multiple types of parts we can place in our obby. For right now, let's keep on focusing on just a regular part. On the right side of our screen is the properties tab. Let's select our part. Now this may look a bit overwhelming, but trust me, you will understand everything soon enough. This tab allows us to change the appearance, data, and effects on our selected part. Let's start with appearance. Can collide means that we can't walk through a part. Turning it off means we can walk right through it without colliding into it, as if we were a ghost. Cast shadow does just as you would expect it to do. And the color section allows us to change the color of our part. We can either type in numbers by RGB, or we can click this gray box. This brings us to a whole color grid, where we could either drag or click to select a certain color. We can also change the brightness of that color, and the numbers on the bottom show how strong the different RGB hues are, and how bright or dark such color is. Now you may notice this paint icon in the top left corner. Clicking this brings us into a mode in which we can tap any other part in our obby to copy its color by. Next is material, which changes the material of the part. Then we have reflectance, self-explanatory. Then surface, we can change the look of the part from it being smooth to, for example, studded. Lastly is transparency. If we set the transparency of a part to 1, it will be completely invisible. Next up, data. Don't worry too much about the numbers. We can edit the position, size, and rotation of a part much easier. I'll get to that soon enough. We can change the shape of our part from being a block to say a cylinder. We can also change how slippery it is, like ice, or if we wanted to act as a body of water. Then the effects tab. Clicking the fire text brings up a list of different types of effects you can apply to our part. For example, here's a fire effect added. To get rid of the effect, press the red X near the effect. You can also change various settings within that effect. Let's take a look back at the bottom of our screen. If you notice, when we select a part, two more icons show up. The one on the left says rotate and the one on the right says resize. If we select the resize button on the right, a new button shows up, the move button. These buttons do exactly what they say they do with a part, but how much it affects the part selected can be changed in the settings. Now let's go to the top left side of our screen. Here we have a gear icon which brings us to settings. One very important feature in settings is the move setting. Changing this changes the amount of studs is used to resize the part, or how much we move it by. If we set the number really low, we get really clean movement for more precise and detailed builds. The next is rotate, which changes how much the rotation is in studs, similar to the move setting. There are also various other settings that are more self-explanatory. Invincibility means that while in edit mode, a kill part in our obby won't kill us. If we turn that setting off, it does. And here's dark mode. You may have realized that the interfaces for me appear a different color for you. Turning on dark mode turns all GUI from white to dark gray color. There's also an area in settings that allows us to change the non-copyrighted music within the game. We can play the next or previous, rewind, or fast forward. We can also mute the music altogether. On the left is the amount of data used in our obby, although it never really gets much past 10% of the total amount, so don't worry. We also have the total value of our obby. On the right, we can see all of the limits of different types of parts we can place in our current obby. For overall part limit, you can increase the amount by using Robux or having it gifted to you by another player. Regular, altogether part limit is shown at the top of your screen while in edit mode. Mine may look a bit different than yours, but that's because they have gotten more. On the right side of the GUI, there are several buttons. Reverting an obby allows you to go back in time all the way to when you first started your obby that you've loaded. Clearing an obby completely clears out everything from it, allowing for a fresh new start. There's also a tutorial button, but I advise you watch this video first to get a deeper understanding on everything. Then we have obby permissions. If we click on that, this will come up. We have a list of everyone in our server. This interface allows us to kick a certain player from our obby, or even ban them to prevent them from entering altogether. We also have the option to give others access to edit our obby. This means multiple people can work on your obby at the same time. You can also invite friends to join your Obby Creator server down here. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something new along the way. If you want to see a part 2 where I go in depth about global properties, advanced parts and tools, game passes, and plugins, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.